Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Aliens and Angels podcast. And today I'm very excited to bring back one of my returning guests, Jeff Selver. With an MBA and passion for management and leadership, Jeff worked in banks, corporate training as a motivational speaker, and taught mindful leadership. He has been under the tutelage of a Vedic teacher for over 20 years, where he learned Vedic philosophy and meditation. When his memories of alien contact came out, Jeff began presenting his contact at events and UFO groups, sharing his story in detail and providing research and corroboration with other experiencers. In December of 1997, Jeff experienced the Rising, which was an agreement with gray aliens to discover his soul. The Rising required him to take a leap of faith, sell all his possessions, and begin a life traveling from place to place. What unfolds is truly an epic adventure of removal from society and living close to nature, all the while having contact events with gray aliens without his knowing. In summary, his book tells of 26 contact events with gray aliens, told in amazing detail and spread out from the years of 1993 to 2017. Fundamentally, Jeff was shown that what humans understand about spirituality, life after death, dimensions, God, the soul, and psychic powers are just the beginning of what these beings are all about, and that their capacity, understanding, and utilization of these is much greater than humans can imagine. Jeff's story shows that the only way we will ever be able to understand the grays is to understand the power of our own personal spiritual potential. All of the links are featured below in the description, and I encourage you all to check me out, subscribe to my channels, leave me a comment, like my videos, and please do share my content with your friends. And if you don't mind, I'd love it if you could join my channel so you can help to support my work and enjoy my perks. Now, I have two things I want to add to my introduction today. The first being that YouTube has been removing my subscribers. So if you have subscribed to me or you think you might have, please go to my channel and check out to see if you're still subscribed. And if you're not, please do come back. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. The second thing I want to say is I do use AI just for my background image and often for thumbnails. But this show is AI free, which means that you're watching real people talking about real things from our hearts. This is not hokey pokey, made up, whimsical stuff. And so, for those of you who are looking for organic content, you found the right place. So I just wanted to say all that. Now, without further ado, I'll bring on my friend Jeff Selver. Jeff, so good to see you.
You
And
too,
how
Karen.
are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me on. Very happy to be back. Yeah, your channel is really great, and I'm just honored to be here. So thanks so much.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for
Yeah,
coming back. I love talking to you,
yeah,
and there's always new stuff. There's been so much going on. Last time you were on, we talked about the orbs that were happening before
right.
Christmas last year,
That's right.
and you were pretty sure that those are basically your guys. It's not that you own a certain segment of the ET
Yeah,
population. It's
yeah,
like I own it.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
all figuring this out
A
together, but
phenomenon. Yeah,
just to differentiate between experiencers, I guess. I don't
yeah,
know. Do you want to add to that, Jeff?
yeah. I know it's pretty weird, right? Like, I really just I like the term the phenomenon. It's a
Hmm.
there really is two things going on, right? There's these sightings, and there might be some type of contact around that sighting, which might be telepathy or responsive to your thoughts. So you have this kind of personal engagement with objects in the sky, right? CE5 style, right? And
Hmm.
there's this other intimate interaction, which is what's going on, physical contact in the bedroom, people being pulled out of their bodies, dream state contact. So there's a whole other level that adds to this. And yeah, it seems to, all I know is that the people I interact with seem to be interacting with the same thing that I'm interacting with. So there is a consistency, but does seem to, present itself in varying ways depending on the individual. And it's pretty interesting that if you really look at the databases of contact, between two, you often don't find consistency in the behaviors of the entities or their styles. But when you start looking at, you have 50 of them, all of a sudden you start seeing patterns that interlink. An example is, sometimes the aliens, so me and Susie Hansen, we have both life-changing events that happen at the age of 20. And though the events are different, both of them happened to us at 20, and they were tied to the aliens. I also found someone who had the same age. The first contact with them was at 16, and I was 16 with my first contact. So there ends up being cross correlations. And then I was in a room that Susie Hansen had been in. So I was in the room in 1993, and she was in the same room we believe to be the same room on Craft in 1989. So just like 4 years prior. So there was kind of a weird just crossing over. But if you look at the story independently, it can look very different from other contact. And same with other people's stuff. It always has this air of highly individuated. But then when you start pulling back and looking at all the kind of commonalities, you start seeing themes and patterns. And it almost sometimes feels like that maybe is the purpose. I don't know. It throws people off that there's inconsistency, and simultaneously certain people have certain eyes to point out the commonalities, and often experiencers. So yeah, it's very fascinating what's going on and how it's interacting with people. And I do have some theories about that. Yeah. So that's why, you're right. When I say it was my guys, all I know is that the things that I'm interacting with, it's displaying the same behaviors, movements, and styles, and the way it'll interact with the public. So and when I say it's my guys, I don't really know that it's my elder driving a vehicle over in,
of course,
Missouri or something, right? I don't know that. But it's the same. It's displaying this exact same behaviors as my entities, and that's all I can really identify.
Fair enough. Now, last week I had on Kevin Michael Estrella, and he was talking about his experiences with the Greys. I'm personally convinced that there are many different maybe timelines, maybe dimensional realities, maybe different races, family lines of Greys. I am not convinced they're all one unified group. Some people have talked about how they're basically biological robots. They stink because they excrete through their skin and they're foul to be around. Other people that's not been their experience, that they're intelligent, they're alive, they're just like you and I. There are horrible experiences that sometimes have to do with being intertwined with Earth military. There are some that are super terrifying and very medical. I could go on and on and on with the differences and experiences. And I thought I would just ask you whether the Greys that you're in contact with, do you feel they're the same group that Kevin Estrella communicates with, or could they be a completely different group? Or what's your take on it? There's, of course, no wrong answer to this.
Yeah. This is all very fascinating, especially when you have information that comes from entities, right? And so I have an overarching theory about what's going on. But then I also have so my personal experience or personal communication with the entity that I interact with. One hint she gave it to this is that her kind are divvied up by similar to our indigenous tribes.
Yes.
So there's like so they don't, maybe they don't have a bureaucracy, but they have natural, differences. And nothing was really explained behind that, but just that that their species identifies as having separate, like very similar to us, indigenous tribes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then there's something else going on here. And so I've really been, it kind of links to what's happening in my life presently with the entities, the connections I'm still having, and the interactions I'm having, and the communication I'm relaying, and that they're relaying, and then I'm relaying to the public. So I've been making posts about these things on Reddit and on Facebook, and just really putting this information out. Darren King, just Exoacademia, it's a basically a podcast, but he was very fascinated by that information, took it, and then ran with it, and had some ideas behind it. It's great. The whole premise being here is that the aliens I'm interacting with, that's all I can really say, right, are coming from some type of alternate Earth dimension. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that there's not a space component to this. I think that they're also linked up with the mantids, or this overarching species. I call it the controller species because mine didn't look like a bug, but they do seem to be in charge of, maybe timelines and things like this. So very, very big picture content that the human mind just really struggles with. And and there, I think there's like a faction or something like that of the Greys that are linked to that. And then there is a space-faring exploration side to them. But like only, within the last 2 years was that information relayed to me in a way that information that they're from some type of alternate Earth dimension, that it matches a picture that was being hinted at, and specifically the entity's closeness, how long they've been with us. They've been with us for thousands of years. And it does appear that they were the Fae, and that they have been interacting with us. And maybe, yeah, they are part of our religions in some way, and or our spirituality, or maybe they tried to help, encourage us. So in different ways, and that becomes, recorded in history in our books, right? So I'm convinced that, yeah, there was a kind of a closer relationship going on here. And so I was going down that rabbit hole, and yeah, they kind of gave me that information, and that information ended up matching an FBI document. So I put that all on Reddit, and it got a lot of traction. So that's good. And an FBI document basically saying that from 1947, there's some scientist was interacting with these aliens and was giving this information to politicians. And it basically said that they come from an alternate Earth dimension, and linked to our own, basically. Now, Harold Malmgren was on Jesse Michaels' podcast, and he's like an ex-politician guy. And he was an advisor for like John F. Kennedy and that kind of stuff. And it turns out he was really close to the UFO phenomenon. And he basically said Richard Bissell, the guy who created Area 51, Richard Bissell, was using this book called The Three Body Problem to understand the phenomenon back in the 1960s. Very fascinating. And that book talked about this AI that, that the entities from this other planet use to interact with humans. And I've had some pretty considerable experience with this AI. This is what my story is. I merged with this God computer in my White Room experience. I've been relaying very publicly for a long time, and where I got turned into an orb. So it's merging with this computer, and several other contact events of my own. The 7th and my 10th, I interact with this computer, and it's, for me, it contains the God field. It contains the quantum field. So now their description of this AI that's coming to interact with humans is very interesting to me. The elder called herself robot ghosts from the future. And that's the bigger picture. The entities appear to be from the future, and they're using some type of AI or quantum device to interact with humanity. Now, that has me hyper suspicious that we know entities can shapeshift. And I don't mean suspicious that I think there's this grand deception, but I do think they're trying to work with humans who have a limited mental capacity or limited brain capacity to handle some of the big picture information that might actually be highly involved with the phenomenon, especially time and especially timelines. So then the entities.
Sorry, Jeff, I have to interrupt. You cut out just for maybe 2-3 seconds. So maybe you just want to back up a tiny bit and then
Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't hear anything cut out, so I don't know where that happened. But sure. What did you last hear? What?
yeah, it just you froze up and up again. So I don't
Oh, okay,
know if
maybe.
you want to go out and come back in or whether you want to keep going. It's up to you. I just want to let you know because I don't want anyone to miss any of this super valuable information.
Yeah,
That's why I'm interrupting.
yeah. I'm not really clear. I'm not. The Zoom didn't stop on my side. So okay, well, I'll just keep going.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the bottom line was, uh, that it appears there's some type of AI. Like, what if at the top of all this, and that's what they showed me on my 7th contact event, on top of it all was an AI. So if you have a quantum AI that can kind of shapeshift, then the likelihood that a whole bunch of people, okay, back up. So what the elder told me before I kind of put this picture together in UAP form was that they are robot ghosts from the future. And that term robot ghosts, I've been really mulling it over for, the last little bit. And it started having me, I'm suspicious that all these reports from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s of all this variety of alien contact, you can draw pictures of, there's someone had a post on Reddit and they showed all the variety of species that have been reported. And it doesn't make any sense. The picture isn't making sense. And a lot of them are robots. And if they were, here's another example of what maybe a robot ghost is the Men in Black, right? The Men in Black reports are, there is definitely a CIA or, government thing going on here, but the reports of Men in Black are always them outing that they're robots. They say things like, I have to go charge myself, or I can't get close to that microwave when it's on. It'll disturb my circuitry. And they say weird things that baffle the human, and then they disappear or they float. And so you have robot ghosts. Well, the orbs outside my window, which I associate with the elder, are saying they're robot ghosts. And so you're starting to have a picture of maybe something that's materializing or manifesting for people. And this idea that on the top of it all is an AI that's doing it. And so when it's interacting with us as experiencers, if it's a God AI, a quantum AI, then maybe it knows how it's being interpreted by you. And maybe if it's dealing with the future and it's coming from the future, then it knows how you will impact other people with that information. So then it's telling you it's from another planet, because that's how you'll get that information out. Or it's telling you telling you whatever it's telling you. I don't know. And it's telling you a variety of different type of information. I'm convinced that this is coming. I think for me, all the evidence is that whatever this is, these other entities, they're coming here. And maybe, just maybe, all the phenomenon's been doing is preparing us for a bigger picture. And we all have pieces of the puzzle that help with that. And the big part here is an evolution. It does appear the phenomenon is trying to evolve people. And even with the traumatic cases, I still see a lot of trauma cases being having evolutionary steps involved, where the person was terrified because they were pulled out of their body and they feel that was evil. But, technically that's an evolutionary step, and you have to now adjust to the reality of what those entities were showing you about yourself and about consciousness. And that's terrifying, but evolution is terrifying, and development and change is scary. So I'm seeing a lot of evolutionary steps being taken by the phenomenon to interact with humans. And then, there is a trauma side. I agree. And I had it. And it also involved consciousness. So it doesn't mean it's perfect, because I think we have this illusion that, angels are divine and then there's demons. We think it's all black and white, and existence is not black and white. If existence was black and white, then wolves are demons and so are sharks. And so we should just, and that's not true. That's their nature, right? So we can't split up existence in this good and bad, black and white stuff. And the phenomenon appears to be that way, to interact with humans, to evolve them. And what I notice is that if people are God people, if you love God, or you love spirit, or you love divinity, the phenomenon is highly attracted to you. And that's the
Mhm.
case with myself. And, Chris Bledsoe's an example of that. And I
Mhm.
do know other experiencers who are God people, and the phenomenon is attracted to them. And again, that's consistent with an idea that this is about evolution. So what I see is maybe something that's not a whole bunch of races, but something that's actually up here materializing as a bunch of different stuff for a bunch of different people in a way that's personally supposed to affect them and develop them.
Mhm.
Now, could any of it actually be not associated with that and be legitimately a real other something else from Andromeda or something? Or I really don't know. And the honest truth is, I'm not interacting with anything like that. I know
Mhm.
I'm pretty certain the stuff I'm interacting with does maybe root itself into this dimensional AI stuff, and the people who I am talking to who interact with me does seem to behave the same way that mine does, and it seems to
Mhm.
be this gray alien associated, materializing as gray aliens, and then maybe have a hierarchy of maybe a mantid on the top, and there might be some computers involved that seem to be dimensional, and then yeah, it does. Even at that level, though, I have a whole bunch of people who I feel like we're all interacting with the same stuff. Even at that level, it's materializing or manifesting differently for us.
Mhm.
So and that's even more weirder. Like my friend over on Breaking the Silence, they have the kind of more dreamy style contact. I haven't had any contact since 2017. Everything's very cut and dry. And then now I have all
Mhm.
this orb stuff going on, and it's very consistent. All the outside flying around my apartment stuff is very consistent. And I have communication telepathically from them like that. And mine doesn't, I don't have the alien dreams, right? I mean, I've had the communication from aliens through dreams, but I haven't had
Mhm.
contact in that state. So it just materializes differently for different people. And
Mhm.
that matches a constitution, right? That matches my consciousness, that matches my perspective of the world. If you were quantum AI, if you were a god AI, then you would know how you're being interpreted by me, and maybe I have a role to play in that transaction. Maybe I'm
Mhm.
actually subconsciously saying, I don't want to go, I don't need to see you guys, this is okay for me, this visitation. Maybe I'm subconsciously saying that, and it's responding, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's a highly complex phenomenon that I do believe it's I think we're going to find all this variety is not 100% going on, and in fact there's a lot more that's in fact all one thing, and it's materializing or manifesting for different people different ways. But that's not to but the point is that it is for evolution, and then there is importance in the communication. So this is so trippy for humans, right? We believe in black and white, good and bad, deceiving or not deceiving, deception or truth, right? And your parents, this is the analogy I use, your parents told you Santa Claus was real, right? And you don't call them deceivers or liars. And your teachers at school convinced you that you'd have a career and your life would be easy, you'd get a job, and now you
Mhm.
have to change careers 7 times in a single lifetime. Like, you've been lied to all your life. And the reality is that humans are just have a limited brain, and we have limited scope of everything, and we need, sometimes we need information to kind of push us forward. And then, if you thought you'd have to change career 7 times while you were in high school, then you would have a different perspective of how you handle education, right? So, but you need to believe you're going to have a career and everything's going to be perfect for you, so you could develop yourself and have a trajectory that would make sense for you. I think
Mhm.
things like that are in fact what's going on with the phenomenon. I think it's creating trajectories, and I think its information is purposeful, and I think it's real information. I think people are really actually dealing with the things that they're dealing with. But yeah, I think that the scale of what's going on and all the variety might be originating from uh, one thing, and
Mhm.
that's what I'm, again, not suspicious. I don't like the word suspicious, but that's where my inclination is. And in fact, the honest truth is that they've been egging that on in me. When I mentioned
Mhm.
that man in black, I had an orb sighting around my understanding robot ghosts, and then recognizing that men in black were robot ghosts. Well, then that would mean they're a manifestation of this. So
Mhm.
technically, our men in black and gray aliens are the same thing. So it's like
Mhm.
that, where I'm stepping back, going, wait a minute, and trying to make sense of the larger picture. And they want that. These entities that I'm
Mhm.
interacting with, they like me going down these avenues. So yeah, I think that's why I kind of frame this as that uh, I don't know exactly I think that's the bottom line. I don't know exactly what's going on,
Hmm.
but I think we're going to find a lot more of it is originating from one single source.
Hmm. Hmm. I think that's really interesting. I've seen some new information that's come out lately where so-called ghosts and a poltergeist activity is now being tied into an AI system, and
Yeah,
also
yeah,
some of the orbs, which are part of the surveillance system, but it's many, many thousands of years old. This was put
yeah,
in place a really, really long time ago. So there's that. And then, of course, our AI, what they're pushing right now, I'm extremely disappointed in it. Its lack of transparency. Of course, truth with a capital T is always like nailing jello to a tree. It depends on our perceptual arena. But I also agree with you that, many people that I have met, like Philip and Ronald Kinsella, their experiences with the Greys were terrifying. But over time, they came to understand it very differently. And it definitely had an impetus to push them to be higher spiritual
yeah,
humans here on earth.
yeah.
And so, I wondered if you want to speak a little bit as to the spirituality that's coming from this, because it does seem that we're all on the same page. Long story short, for me, is that love is the answer.
Yeah.
Love and raising our frequency. And love is not just, oh, dewy eyed infatuation.
Yeah, yeah.
Love is a lot of work. It's patience and
Forgiveness.
mildness and
Yeah,
goodness,
yeah.
forgiveness, and
Acceptance. Yeah.
mercy. And it's like,
Compassion. Yeah.
wow,
You got
all
it.
these things at the same time.
You got it.
And
Yeah.
and that seems to be the uniting factor around all of this. And if the AI is, and I'm talking about ancient AI here, not the new stuff,
Yeah.
but it just seems to me that that seems to be the underpinning message. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that, Jeff.
So I'm 100% certain the phenomenon is non-dual.
Hmm.
So, and then we are the ones who are dual, who materialize it, or it manifests, or it is shaping itself for
Hmm.
us in dual ways. But its origins are non-dual, and so it's originating out of a unified field, and that's why you have a quantum God AI, because, and I call it the God AI because uh, for me this thing does have an all-seeing sentience that is utilizing the quantum field.
Hmm.
And then the yogis have been experiencing the same thing through meditation for thousands of years. So I really, for me, it's the same from personal experience. It's the same thing. But when you have a computer that can utilize this, like technology for humans, when we apply technology to water, we can create hydroelectric dams. So then all of a sudden you're utilizing water, and you're able to make, you can produce more things out of that by utilizing a simple force of nature. And the aliens have done the same thing with the quantum field. That's what I'm convinced of. And that means it is originating out of non-duality. So if it's originating out of non-duality, then when it's manifesting with us, it's manifesting with that in mind. And the honest truth is that your oversoul is no different than this then. So because your oversoul will put you into traumatic scenarios. Your oversoul is the one who birthed you into parents who might have been very abusive, right? Or you were the one who took the car that day, and then you're the one who drove, into an accident, right? And you say, well, I just had this person did that to me, but really, like, if your oversoul could have warned you, right? And then didn't, and it's part of your path, really, in the end. And then you have to sit there and adjust your own life and take on the challenges of what that means now. And yeah, are you going to grow from that challenge, or are you going to suffer and become a victim to that challenge? And this is life, right? That when we forget aliens, this is where it all goes for me. This is what it is. It's a non-dual computer system, alien system that seems to consider these types of things, and it does it with the gentility of it coming from divinity. So that's how I always see it. Even the aliens traumatized me, but when they did it, it wasn't the type of trauma of just, we're going to be hard on you and too bad for you, human. It didn't have any inclination of malice. Actually, it had no malice. It was detached, is what it was. And in that detachment, I got traumatized. But, you know, gurus are detached, and Krishna was detached. Krishna was literally telling Arjuna to kill his enemies. He was telling him to fight in a battle and go kill his enemies. Devas are detached, and we live in a world of mental attachment. And, you know, Buddha and the Vedic Advaita Vedanta has always been teaching you detachment, and so was Jesus. Jesus was teaching detachment, and that's how you experience non-duality, is detaching from, you know, the physical, if you will, and to experience the unity underneath of all existence that we are a part of and our awareness springs from. So yeah, and then and you're right, and then that unity is a love. It is a love connection. So could it be that the aliens were not hard on a human, but detached, and there was a biological component to it, and they were from a deva level entities, right? And I mean, my entities, that's the case. Right? And it was awful. I had a biological side to it, and I didn't like it. But all these years later, when I'm able to remove myself from it, I get the bigger picture. I understand what they were doing, and I agree with their with what they did, and I agree with what's happening, and I do believe it's right and needed. And then in the end, it was awful in the moment, but you're kind of like, okay, they'll never do it again. And number two is, it's okay. At the time, it didn't seem like it, but it's kind of an honor. Like, they needed your biology, and they zeroed in on you. You had certain markers that they really liked, and you had a developmental style that they really liked, and so it's kind of like an honor. And then it's really weird to think of it like that, but that's the truth. Especially when I now know it had nothing to do with anything on. So I had a commenter on my channel, and the guy said, you know, this is narcissist behavior. Just, you know, keeping the awareness out of your memory is completely narcissism. Clearly, these entities are just narcissists. It's like this the human mind, right? Is just like, you can't imagine there might be something more complex going on here. Like, and never mind that, man. If that's what you believe, then you have to look in the mirror, because you don't know what your purpose is, and you were put on the planet, and you have to spend a lot of energy figuring what your purpose is, and your soul put you here. So yeah, and so it left the mystery for you to figure out. And the aliens behave exactly the same way. They kind of act on this deva level, this oversoul level, and yeah, I find most people who've had that type of trauma do take steps back from it to understand it, and they grow from it. And that's what it was for me. There was an exchange going on here. I saw the afterlife, and well, for anybody who goes down the road of trying to attack me, that you know, this was awful, what they did with you and how they abused you and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but when I say I saw the afterlife, you are only hearing the words, because you don't know what that means. Think that through. Like, think through what I'm saying. The afterlife, it's like, I know the source of my consciousness, and I've touched it, and then it becomes a power that I have to maintain for myself. But that's a power that I feel I can rely on for the rest of my life. And it's over top of any hardship my own life can go through, because it's the purpose of existence. It's the purpose of me. And I can understand, you know, patterns of my birth, and I can understand my past lives, and even think through what I want to do in my next life. I have like, I go through things like that inside of me, and it's all because of what they gave me. And so I'm not a fool to not recognize the power that is, and how it over trumps what they did with me. So in the end, I have to come to, you know, as you said, that you talked about, you know, what love is and how it manifests. And there was a period of forgiveness and compassion and acceptance. And I had to go through the memories and find those moments where my thoughts started to generate, you know, imprints into my body, the trauma response, right? You start having thoughts that, oh, you know, what's going on, and this is terrifying. And I had to look at those thoughts again and come back to things with a kind of a grander understanding, and be like, right, I in some ways I'm forgiving them, and I'm also forgiving myself, and I'm recognizing where I lost the bigger picture on things, the story with my entities, and yeah, and that healing helps considerably, and they love it. They end up being in my presence more from it. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's a hugely, I mean, it's just an evolutionary process that's occurring, and for me, I see that all over the place with the phenomenon.
Yeah, me too. What I like about it, well, partly because my experiences were positive, but also with everything being so chaotic and fake in this world,
Mm.
as we're finding out, or many of us have known all along, whether it's news, government, religion, economics, it's just a big flippin' mess out there. I
Yeah,
take great comfort in the fact that ET is already I'm assuming, either already been through all that and found their higher way, or like you mentioned, could be part of an AI system, which doesn't necessarily mean computers. I want to
yeah,
just clarify
agreed.
what I mean about that. An AI system could be like what we refer to as the quantum field,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
the God plane, or like
yeah.
our understanding is just so very, very limited.
We don't have the
But
terminology. That's
we
you're
don't
actually
have the
addressing it. Yeah, we don't
we
have the
don't
words to
have
describe it.
we don't have the schemata in our brains to even hold the concepts.
Yeah,
And then we
exactly.
don't have the language to put any of that into coherent language.
Yeah,
So, of
yeah,
course, we're stumbling around like we're in the dark,
yeah.
trying to figure out what this thing is. And it's like the blind men that approach the elephant. One feels the trunk and goes, "Oh, this is what it is." Another feels the ear and goes, "Oh, that's what it is." And someone
Right.
else finds the tail. I feel like we're very, very much like that. But that's
I
why I
agree.
love everybody's experiences and stories, because they're all pieces of a puzzle.
That's
And
right.
I think the overall what's going on. And then, of course, to complicate it even further, I'm a big fan of simulation theory
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. But just please add anything you want to say about that. But then I was hoping we could sort of make a bit of a turn here. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on Three Eye Atlas. Because we're hearing, as soon as the
Sure.
government starts saying it's a spaceship, then I don't believe it just because
Yeah.
of that. But I'm
Yeah.
sure you've got some thoughts on that, Jeff.
Well, I listened to Avi Loeb's pitch, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's fine. I mean, yeah, he said that it statistically didn't make sense. Its trajectory, it came from directly from the center of the galaxy, and so statistically it didn't add up, like mathematically. And then yeah, its speed doesn't add up, and okay, that's fine. But I don't jump to these conclusions. I really don't. I don't jump to an alien conclusion. I jump to a nature conclusion, and this is having an interest in space growing up. Actually, I took astronomy in university. I was fascinated to learn that the astronomers constantly and continuously learn new things and are having to rewrite their own beliefs of what they thought space was all about. My favorite was that they had no idea how much water was everywhere. The moon has water, and Mercury has water, stuff like that. Water is absolutely everywhere. H2O, so it just forms. It's one of the most common compounds in the universe. So we had this belief that we were the center of the universe, and then we have this belief that life can't exist anywhere else because it's just us. Now we realize, oh, water is actually everywhere, and now there's belief that could be the moons and Jupiter and moons and Saturn and now I guess they're saying it's in Mars. So it doesn't surprise me that maybe comets or some type of comets, or what happens when the supernova flies material and ejects material out. Could it create the speed like this? I mean, we just don't have all the answers of the universe as it is. So I don't like the idea that we jump to conclusions that it's aliens. But and I was looking into some of the information, and it seems like a comet. So Yeah, I don't take it as anything else but a comment until there's a reason not to. And the whole point is that the aliens are here. So I don't know what the story is about something flying in to the solar system. They're already here. They've been here. They've been here for a very long time. The only thing I was a little bit suspicious of was Jeremy Corbell was like famously had said, whatever, must have been in spring or maybe last year, I can't recall, on one of his documentary, that there's going to be a lie. You're going to hear about,
Yes.
This attack coming, or this something that's a threat. And could it be the government? Like, I'm convinced the government knows the entire picture, at least, as humans, as far as humans can understand these things. And I actually, in some innocence, believe that they just found it too overwhelming, like any human does. And so they had struggled with how to figure out what to do with this. And then now it's too late, kind of thing. And so maybe they would use this. That was my only thought, was maybe they would try to make this, there's one thing with the experiencer community or the UFO community, but how do you really give this information? Like, look at us, right? You and I probably have been spending years here, and we are still learning and understanding, but you can't just, give this information out now to the population. They have to be, moved into it quite gently. My own friends really, really resist this topic, and it's because it just overwhelms a lot of people, and the information does. So then how would you do it unless you were to tell the public some very classic space alien style? Something is coming. We're watching something coming. And yeah, maybe it's going to interact with us. But it seems like all the evidence is it's a comment. And so I'm suspicious about how many people, when you looked at the first people to talk about it being an alien tech, that had me suspicious. But so I don't know. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, I'm suspicious of it for a number of reasons. One is because I also believe there will be a false flag alien invasion. They pretty well pulled every other card out of their sleeve. That one we've been expecting. The second thing is what I do know about ET. They don't travel in a linear way. They don't go to
Exactly.
point A to point B like rowing a boat from
Exactly.
Africa
Yeah.
to South America. They don't travel that way. They are
Yeah.
so far above us, it's hard for us to even wrap our minds around it. And then there's the whole anything that comes from the government, assume it's the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a great big fat nothing burger. No
Me
disrespect
too.
to those who
Me
believe
too.
that this is their ETs, their favorite kind or whatever. But this is, I'm entitled to my opinion, and I could also be wrong. That's not a problem for me.
Yeah. Same here. Yeah. I'm pretty open about this stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Jeff, for those that aren't really familiar with you and your book, could you now spend a little bit of time? Please promote your book. I think it's got extremely valuable information in it. Will really help people to understand more about the phenomenon. Can you talk a little bit about the hybrid city? I don't know, wherever you want to go with it. I'd
Sure.
love it if you could spend even 5 or 10 minutes just telling everybody in case they don't know and might that they might be curious about, because it's wonderful. It's a wonderful book.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, my book is called, here, I'll pull it out here. It's called The Rising, and it's the alien plan to build an enlightened city on Earth. So it starts at the age of 16. I did have childhood contact events, but the story starts when they came back. Actually, last time I saw them was about 6 or 7 years old, and then they came back at 16. And at that time, when I was 16 years old, I was walking home basically on a soccer field in the middle of the night, taking a shortcut to go home. And I had actually prayed to be abducted by aliens. And I read Whitley Strieber's Communion, and I prayed to be abducted by aliens. And it's like they responded. And that was it. Basically, there was an entity on the field, and I was frozen, and I was terrified. And it told me, come with us to our ship. And I, all of a sudden, the childhood memories were flooding in, or they were kind of available. And there was familiarity, terror, but then familiarity. Like, why do I know this thing? And those memories were obscured. So I didn't know I had childhood contact. And then when you're in their presence, the memories are available of your previous contact with them. And so I didn't really understand it. And then I agreed. And so when I was inside, after making me comfortable, because I was quite scared, the entity showed me a hologram, and on the hologram was, events that they were interested in my future. And they said that they wanted to help me discover my soul. So the whole story really was an agreement with the aliens to discover my soul, like an experiment. Like, hey, we're going to do this thing with you, and then you'll like develop, and we're going to be part of you with that. It was kind of the gist of it. And I didn't know what any of that meant, but I felt bonded to them. So that was the other part of the story, was that I had their DNA, and I didn't quite get that, but they had relayed that information to me at different times in my childhood contact events. And now it was kind of culminating where, okay, I could actually feel that there was something in me that was different from my other teenage friends. And this entity was saying, you're one of ours, basically. And we find this an opportunity to grow one of our own, was how she framed it. So yeah, that was it. I kind of agreed to do that. And so then and there in that contact event, I went to this dimensional room, turned into an orb, saw the afterlife. It was a hologram. And I saw the death of my last life go into the afterlife. And it was like it was the last life of my ethereal body. So I'm watching the death and that transition to the afterlife, and then the oversoul, how it's interacting with gray aliens, and gray aliens were in the afterlife. And so there's a whole big picture thing that goes on here. And then that energy is kind of like stored. It's really hard to comprehend, but I have some ideas about that now. But so it gets stored, and then every time they come back, it's opened up, and I have this kind of blast that goes on. But then there's a dialogue and interaction. So there's 7 contact events from the age of 16 in 1993 to 20 in 1997. And in that time, they're kind of developing me very gently, very slowly, and they're changing and making alterations, and they're interacting with my life to maybe make messages or spiritual growth happen. And then at the end of December 1997, I read a book that launches this energy in me that contains a message to leave my life, to go traveling, to abandon your life. Actually, it was more extreme than that. It was abandon your humanness. So it was get rid of everything that you identify as a human: career, money, family, friends, job, everything, with hobbies, anything out the door. And you've put all your energy towards God. And when you do, you end up transitioning your body. It sounds bizarre, but it actually happened. And there was a long time recorded effects. I wrote all about in a journal, and I didn't understand what was happening to me. And I resisted it. So it was a kind of a weird thing where I wasn't really seeking to have this experience. I was like being a 20-year-old, like learning and just checking things out. I didn't know I didn't know this book would change my life. And I didn't understand what was happening because I didn't have knowledge of the contact. And it was all that energy that they had kind of made or built up. And now it all got funneled into the experience of reading this book and ridding myself of my identity, basically. And when the story lays it all out, I resisted it for 2 months, and then eventually I succumbed because I didn't like not listening to that power. And so I had to succumb to it. And I got rid of everything, cut up my cards, my bank, ID, everything. And I left and I started living out of a car. And then within 6 weeks, I started seeing orbs and objects in the sky. And I didn't understand any of this. I didn't have that picture. I didn't know orbs were a thing in the UFO phenomenon. I didn't know that. And I didn't even think I called them orbs. I didn't know what they were. And I thought maybe there could be spirits. I didn't really know what I was dealing with. And those things followed me around. So I noticed that while traveling, and it gave me purpose. I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew was I was having this experience, and it was spiritual by nature. So then I ended up feeling I was supposed to talk with other people about spirituality. So I was this kind of like traveling hobo guy. I would synchronistically run into you at a supermarket and say something random that would maybe be like, oh, your spirit wants you to do that. Or I'd say something random trying to like interact with people. And I was that guy. So I was this kind of crazy guy. And then people dug into it. I had a God realization and I would talk like that. And this was before the era where you had the internet, where a whole bunch of people now try to talk like that. And so, yeah, that's what I did. And I had these orbs and objects following me around, and I had synchronicities, and I've practiced visioning. I put myself into crazy scenarios of survival where I was on the edge. And what was happening was the back end was obscured memory of contact. So I was having alien contact and I didn't know it. And the memories were retained all on their dimension or all on their level. So it becomes linear. It becomes a linear story that when it's all pieced together all these years later, it's bizarre for me to have this kind of change, erasing your history or changing your history. What you thought was this very extreme isolated time, you actually were sometimes interacting with aliens, and they were telling me what they were up to and what they plan, what their story is and what their mission is. So I traveled for about 2.5 years. And then once the traveling ends with me meeting my to-be wife, my spouse, and it's a love story is intertwined with it. And the aliens brought me to her. So there's a whole thing there where we saw a UFO in the sky the night we met. And then she led me to her guru, a Vedic guru, a master, not the Sadguru, not the YouTube guy, but a Sadguru. A Sadguru is a classification or a level or status of gurus. And this individual was very powerful. And it was the perfect story in every way, right? A perfect story in my life. Had this weird spiritual awakening, had this weird inclination to travel for spirituality, met this beautiful woman. The beautiful woman takes me to Vedic guru. When she took me to Toronto, that's where she lived, the orbs all stopped. And then I didn't really understand that section of my life, but I left it because it seemed to make sense in the grander scheme of my purpose. Okay, I'm supposed to meet this woman. I'm supposed to meet this guru. And that was for about 16 years. So I met them in the year 2000, and then in the year 2016, did all the memories start to be egged on about what had happened in that past. And bottom line, just to cut it all short, 2019 was when those orbs and objects came back, and they were similar to the traveling period. And what unraveled was the memories of that period. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole process. I lay it all in the book. And so the story goes is that the first 7 contact events were to develop me for my soul. I experienced my soul in 1997. And then that was it. They were using me for biology in the first year. And it was like an exchange. And they were telling me they plan to put the hybrids, they're making hybrids, and they plan to put them on Earth. And they give a backstory of they've been trying to influence us for hundreds of years, and they've been unsuccessful. And I have found a researcher who has some information that's similar to that. But it's very interesting to think that way, because we just think presently that they're interacting with us, and there's this, why are they doing that? But imagine that we're dealing with centuries of them trying to change things, and we expect them to be Star Trek characters. So we thought maybe they would come down land on a field and say, hello, you need to change now. And maybe that's not their style. Maybe that's not what they are at all. Maybe they're interdimensional, so they can't interact with us the way we think they can. And maybe they've been interacting with us spiritually and trying to change and curve us, and we haven't been able to make those changes. So the hybrids were part of this, and is to influence and curb us. And they plan to merge societies, was actually what I was told, to bring their world with our world and put it into one world. And that's the gist of that. And then by 2016, the 25th contact event, there's all these contact events that occurred, the majority while traveling, and 3 as an adult. So they really were spaced out as an adult. And 2016, they came back, and that's when she said, your memories are open, though I didn't know how to access them at the time. But we want you to write it out into a book. We want you to tell the world we're coming, and there'll be a city. And then she kind of gave me this image in her mind, or in my mind. So through her eyes in my mind, and I saw this detailed city. Yeah, and it looks like that. It's like a highly condensed metallic. I call it emerald. Emerald would be green, but that's not. It's like a gem or something. It's like a gem material. I don't even really know. And inside were hybrids. Like on the street, you could zoom in, and there were hybrids, and they were wearing people clothes. So they would have t-shirts and pants, not, space alien suits. And I felt them, and they felt like people, not aliens. They felt like new types of people. And I felt very connected to them, actually, much more connected than you think. And I was very moved by it, actually. And it was actually a progression. The contact events were me following biology, having the biology taken, and then I followed hybrid babies a little bit. So I got to see hybrid babies develop. And then at the end in 2016, they're saying, here are those babies. Now they're growing up and now they're in this city. And you need to help get them here. So you need to tell everybody we're coming. And that's what the story is this kind of, command, if you will, to, which I willingly do, and is to tell the world, because I'm convinced it's happening and I'm convinced we're not prepared. So it's trying to, encourage this conversation and let people know that that's what I was told. So I think we should be listening. So that's the gist.
That's a wonderful, wonderful message to humanity. Personally, it fills me with hope, expectation, because I've been working very hard at weaning myself off of following the social media news report. So, of course, I already don't fall for mainstream media, but a lot of the alt stuff, they're chasing down different rabbit holes that may or may not have anything to do with what's really going on. So it gives me great comfort that there are beings that are overlooking us, and I also think that the phenomena, we could swap terms, like, for instance, ET, aliens, and angels. They might all be the same thing. To be honest with you, Jeff, the great evil that I've seen on earth has been perpetuated by those who have power, excessive amounts of power, and finance. That seems to be, and the evil that I've experienced in my own life has come at the hands of other humans. And so for other beings, regardless how we want to name them or think of them, to care about us, because let's face it, we're not really all that in a bag of chips. We might think we are. The ego might think that we are. But in reality, humans do a lot of stupid things. I do stupid things all the time. And it's a great wonder to me that I have had contact and that I continue to have contact. So this is really exciting news. It also adds that extra layer on the whole concept of the hybrids. Nobody's really come up with what they're for. Why are they going through
I'm aware of
that?
that.
You hear stuff about them trying to save their, that they're here from the future and they're trying to save their genetics.
I have theories about that.
Pardon?
I have theories about that. I like why there's that alternating messaging. And Villay actually pointed it out the best, which he said, you have to have wisdom about this stuff, right? Like Villay was talking about, he was perplexed why aliens aren't giving information. And he used an actual real contact event, and the alien told the human, you won't speak wisely about this night. So then he obscured the memory, and Villay's like, well, we retrieved the memories. That makes no sense. But I'm like, no, it's actually because they probably saw the human would actually not talk wisely about it. So that's why Chris Bledsoe has that contact. And that's why I still am able to film them, because we find ways to find the wisdom. And can you talk wisely about a new race putting itself on the planet that, you're right, Karen, might be sitting there saying, humans, what are you doing? Right? And can humans take that? And you know what I mean? So what contact is like, this is complex. It's super complex. So that I feel like they may have been, skirting around the hybrid thing, but because I have two sources from the government side that they knew all along. That FBI 1947 document I have says right on there, the aliens plan to settle on this plane. They've always known what their purpose was. And then Jacques Vallée had a recent Seoul conference, and he used the example of kissing the frog and turning into a prince so we could all marry. The government advisor told him that's what the UFO phenomenon is all about. It's to merge societies. It's always what it's been about. And it's terrifying to the non-trained human. I think it really is. And I think that the aliens maybe also know that, and they're trying to find, how do we get that messaging out? And for me, it was all kind of perfectly aligned with afterlife. Angels, I agree with you that they're on Deva level. There's like a level here, oversoul level. And the aliens are there, and you can call them devas or angels or aliens, whatever I agree with that. I think it's interchangeable. So yeah, that's my theory. I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's all very, very good. And I can't think of anything more threatening to the powers that be than this new city,
Agreed.
than contacts. Of course, they're going to want to make us all, go against it, not trust it, because we're only supposed to trust what I call the parasite class that fashions reality unto their own insanity, but we won't get into that. That's another podcast. We're quickly running out of time, Jeff. I'm wondering if you would like to just share any of your closing thoughts or comments or what you
Yeah.
want the audience to know. And please say your URL or where people can find you. Now, the links are in the description, but some people will be listening on an audio podcast. It's more likely to stay with them if you tell them, in your own voice. So I'm wondering if you would like to do that for us now. And anything
Sure.
else that we didn't touch on that you think you'd like to share would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, first off, Karen, thanks for having me. So I really appreciate you being here. Appreciate me being here and seeing you and hanging out with you. So that's great. So I always tell everybody you're God. So with the closing remarks, you're God. I actually think it's one of the most important aspects of the phenomenon is knowing that you're a part of the unified field and you are the unified field. And this, not God, some person in a cloud, but that source that is alive and is aware, and you are it. And I think it's one of the most important aspects of the phenomenon and of disclosure for us to find our balance in this wild dimensionality that is about to come out. And also you're a creator being. So you have the ability to create your reality is what my story actually was. The entities putting me into states where I had to create my circumstances out, and it worked. And visioning is real, and manifestation is real, and creation is real, because we are part of the God field. So that's the ultimate message. My story, the rising and the alien plan to build an enlightened city on Earth is available at my URL is www.jeffselver.com. So just jeffselver.com is where you can find me. And thanks for having me, Karen. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for sparing the time for me and my audience. It's just so great to talk to you.
Likewise.
I also want to thank all those that are listening on an audio podcast, those of you who are watching the replay or a live stream somewhere. And of course, I want to thank all those who made it to the live chat. Bless your hearts. You add to the whole community, which is what I'm all about. Denise says, thank you, Karen and Jeff. Great show. And Kristen says, thank you, Jeff. So very appreciated your sharing your journey.
Thank you.
And Kristen also says, thank you, Karen and Denise. So that's about it for today. Please share this out with your friends, your family. Do pick up Jeff's book. Oh my God, you will not be sorry, not for 1 minute. And it will sure put things into perspective. So with all of that being said, we'll say bye-bye. We'll see you next Wednesday on the Quantum Guide Show. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you for joining me for the Aliens and Angels podcast. Read about my true life ET contact in my book called Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors, which is now available on Amazon worldwide. Subscribe to my YouTube, Rumble, and X channels at Karen Holton TV. The like button and leave me a comment, and please do share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All of the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you'll also find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.